Welcome to Resilient Minds 365, where we discuss the resilient stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, and students with mental illnesses to encourage you to strive, thrive, and live in abundance. I'm your host, Cleoni Crawford. Welcome to another episode of Resilient Minds 365. I'm Cleoni Crawford, your host. Today, guys, we have a special guest with us. Today, we have Sophia Jackson with us. Who is Sophia Jackson? Well, Sophia radiates creativity. She's passionate about highlighting the connection between mental well-being and financial well-being, and advocates for people to be financially responsible, independent, and protected. Her main goal is to positively impact the lives of others, having them feel better and be better about connecting with her as she makes this exciting career path her spiritual and financial livelihood. She feels deeply about people, especially BIPOC women, investing in ways to live their best lives is financially, spiritually, psychologically, and physically. Sophia believes in leading by example and showing practical ways that clients can benefit from multiple streams of income, diversification of income, and self-development. Sophia has written and produced 2 albums utilizing her vocal and lyrical prowess. She has expanded her talent as a wordsmith and is now an author of 2 affirmation coloring books for adults, which helps her to set a tone of calm to introduce her concepts of financial literacy as a mental health concern. Having worked as a dynamic, highly skilled child and youth counselor for the past 7 years, has equipped her to distill heady financial terms as a licensed financial well-being coach. With that said, I now present to you Sophia Jackson. Sophia, how are you today?
I'm doing well. That was a mouthful, right?
Girl, that was a mouthful, but it's all you. It's all you.
All right. Thank you.
That's awesome. So the first question I'd like to ask is, tell us a bit more about what you do. You do a lot of things. You're a musician, you are a mental health advocate, you are an author. Break it down. Tell us more about each segment of what you do and who you are.
Okay. Well, to break it down, I want to tie it all together because it sounds like, they're all they're not connected, when everything I do, from music, which connects to songwriting, which connects to being an author, and as well as the mental health piece and being a child and youth counselor, that connects to mental health and mental well-being, and being able to have those conversations with people. And then my financial background, being a licensed financial professional, that is also tied in with mental health and mental wellness, and through the lens of self-care. Like, it's also a self-care practice, and that's one of the things that I do, and like having these conversations with individuals like yourself, women who are doing awesome things, because it's just to highlight that existing connection between mental health, mental well-being, self-care. All of those things are in one silo, and that it is connected to financial wellness and financial well-being, because that is, again, a self-care practice. And to use that language, because it's not often described that way, that financial wellness is also a self-care practice, but it makes sense once you hear it, right?
Right.
And so that's how they're all tied in. At the end of the day, they're all tied in with wellness. Wanting to help others and help them to live their best lives, and how to do that, and coaching and turning on the light bulbs and helping people get past any, trauma or any, ideals, old ways of doing things, just because it's the way you've always done something doesn't mean it's the best way to get something done. So to get out of your own way. So I'm able to have those conversations, and that's all under the umbrella of wellness, well-being, and that's how they're all connected. I can to break it down in each segment. Should I go that route? Because I really wanted to highlight the connectivity of it.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I'd like to ask a question about the they say that mental health and money, that when people do not have access to money, it can actually affect one's mental health. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll use the story of somebody who is living on the margins, may be homeless or may be on the brink of homelessness, and not having to utilize the different things that are available through the system, maybe Ontario Works or soup kitchens, or things of that nature, shelters, stuff like that, and some of the experiences that an individual will have in some of those spaces can be very daunting, traumatic, depression, things like that can happen because not having that access, and then having to utilize the system, which can be another trip on its own. So money doesn't solve all your problems, but it definitely solves your money problems. And when you're talking about things like just rent and food and your basic needs, you need finances, you need money, and you need to be able to manage your money in order to take care of those things. So it really comes down to basic needs when we're talking about financial, like when you're talking about finance and money and earning money and how to spend it responsibly and how to save as well. Somebody who's in a position where they feel like they need every dollar. How do you, show somebody in a position like that they still need to save and put aside something, even when you're at, because that's how you start to build the habits and the muscle of saving and putting aside, even because that's how you start to get yourself out of any situation or out of a hole. And it might sound daunting to think that, I only have, maybe $5. It's like, well, yeah, take $1, take 50 cents, take something and put it aside and just keep building.
That's awesome. Makes sense. Okay. So with that said, we are going to move to the mental health piece of this interview. So the first question I'd like to ask you, so what is your mental health diagnosis and when were you diagnosed?
I would say, so my mental health diagnosis would be around anxiety and stress and anxiety. And very circumstantial, I've had where it ebbs and flows, right? Your ups and downs, and having some situations that I've gone through, which were just pretty, that really played on my resilience and my ability to process and to cope and stuff like that. So there's a short period in my life, but then also thinking about just through this time with the pandemic and everything like that. So it's stress, anxiety, and that would be the diagnosis.
Okay, cool. So tell us a bit more about your mental health story of resilience. what did you go through? What did you overcome? And how did you, I guess, become resilient despite it, your mental health challenge?
The situation that I went through was, I'm being very transparent and vulnerable with this because it's not something that I've actually shared on a platform, but I had a relationship that was narcissistic. Like I had a partner who was narcissistic, and that made my experience, it's a very surreal experience. You know, it was something that at the time while I was going through it, I thought was amazing, like the best relationship that I had ever had. And we actually had gotten engaged and everything as well. But that quickly turned into, psychological abuse, financial abuse. And I was taken away from my family because I ended up in Miami. And it made to feel like it was my idea, but just that's where the manipulation played in, right? And I was in Miami away from everybody and not sharing details about what was happening because that would be betraying this person that was my partner and who I was engaged to and was, thinking that I was going to marry at some point. So it was just me and him against the world, right? And I wasn't sharing about anything that was happening. So that isolated me even more. And then started playing on my own self-esteem and my own self-worth and my psyche, which is part of that process, right? Is breaking you down so that you're feeling like you're only so dependent on this one person. And I was, that's kind of the highlight of that. It was the manipulation, the name calling. There was this one situation I will highlight specifically because I'm a pretty confident individual, and because of my singing and performing and being able to be on stage and things like that. And I was just like, I needed to big myself up. I was having a moment and I proclaimed that I am Sophia. I was with some friends and I don't remember exactly the context, but I was just like, I am Sophia, and just like raw, and he started laughing at me.
Wow.
And mocking me. I am Sophia. And I was just like, in front of other people.
Yeah.
Just to make me feel, small, put me in check, right? To put me in check. Like, yeah, you're getting too big for your bridges. So let me just stomp that because that wouldn't fare well with the manipulation and the, keeping me under a thumb. And it's crazy because it's like, seeing it from a different perspective. When I was in it, you're not looking at it from this lens, right, of having overcome. But in the moment, it was a very diminishing and small, made me feel small and things like that. And so that's like an example of things that happened quite frequently throughout the months that we were together. And I was on this roller coaster ride, really.
Mm-hmm. So then how did you overcome, I guess? What did you have to do to, I guess you ended that relationship, but what happened? How did you rebuild that? Because the manipulation kind of affects you for a while, and then can actually affect your other relationships. So what did you have to do to bounce forward? I guess that's the word.
Yeah. I didn't end the relationship. He did.
Oh.
Which was a blessing, right? Yes. That was a blessing. And I strongly believe that he ended the relationship because I was demonstrating too much independence. Because while I was in Miami, I was also performing and creating a life for myself there that didn't include him. And I made a choice to really dive into my music career at the time and put him on pause. I was just like, I can't deal with you right now because I have a show. I can't deal with you right now because of, I need to be at the songwriting circle. And he didn't like that. So I think eventually that got to him and he ended it. But that was traumatic because I was like, this was going to be my life partner and we were going to get married. And he did it over the phone. I was in Miami and he was in Toronto, because that was part of the manipulation too. He wasn't even in the same space, in the same country as me. And it still had this hold. And once he ended things and I started processing that I was in Miami by myself, I had to find my way home. So this was part of the starting of me getting out of or healing. And I had to jump into survival mode and find my way home, ship stuff. Like I had accumulated clothing and just things. I had to ship it all back to Toronto. And then when I got back to Toronto and I was in my space, there was friendships and relationships that I had nurtured while I was there. And they were also part of the whole unveiling and revealing of this, crazy relationship. And they threw me a going away party, which was really cool. And I still have, friendships to this day from that. And so that was part of it. The going away party, the figuring out how I was going to get back home, the shipping of my stuff, just the finality of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then once getting back here, that's when it kind of all just hit me. Like, what just happened? Like, what was that?
Mm-hmm.
And I was beating up myself for allowing myself to be in a situation like that. I was blaming myself for being duped, basically, is how I describe it, and I was taking responsibility. And so I went into some counseling. I was part of a women's group for abused women through Peel. So some of the Peel services that I tapped into to just really unpack and have those conversations about what had happened, and to recognize that it wasn't my fault and that I needed to forgive myself, all of that. And so that took several months and if not years. Yeah. Cause this was back in 2012. And so that was the process. I went and saw my family doctor because I didn't know what to do with myself. I was crying uncontrollably. I was, like that stress, the anxiety, the shame, all of that was just like boom, hitting me. And so she recommended that, because we weren't sure if this was going to be a long-term effect, when we're talking about the stress, the anxiety, and potentially depression. Was this a long-term effect, or was this just the residuals of dealing with the situation and the circumstances? So she referred me to a psychiatrist, and I shared my story. And that's where the diagnosis came in, which was situational. I don't know if that's the right term, but he just said, you're just going to need time to process this.
Right.
You're fine. You're fine. This is a normal response, but this is still, it's still serious enough that you're in this space right now, but you just need to continue to take care of yourself, to speak, have these conversations. I only saw him once. And then I just continued with the support groups, and my family obviously was great support. And then I also ended up becoming a counselor myself, right? So going through that process, there was a lot of triggers and a lot of learning and a lot of language. Oh my gosh, that's where I started getting the language to associate with what I had gone through, because prior to getting my child and youth counselor credentials, I didn't know what the language was. I really wasn't familiar with the term narcissistic behavior, and I wasn't familiar with the signs and the triggers and the cycle of abuse and things like that. I did not have the language at all. So that was like so powerful that I went back to school and made a decision that I wanted to support young people and make that a career path. And it also obviously benefited me as well. And therefore, that kind of took me through a full like program, I guess, of healing.
Okay. So we have the support groups, we have the psychiatrist, we have the
Family
doctor, we have
friends and family.
So you did, it was a lot of different things that you had to do to overcome and bounce back from your lowest points. Okay, cool. My next question for you is, what are 3 things you wish you had available when you were at your lowest point?
Yeah. I don't remember what I shared.
I think you said
there's like
a psychotherapist of color and the funds to pay for that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Go ahead, sorry.
And I think you also mentioned the financial resources to not have to work. And the last one, better understanding of what you went through, closure and answers.
Okay, yes, thank you for reminding me of that, because that the financial piece, that is what kind of helped me one of the things that helped me to get into the financial industry, is because there was part of the abuse was financial, right? And I ended up going into a lot of debt because I was living on Miami Beach, like one of the most expensive places, on Ocean Drive. That's where I was. And I was being told that I needed to, support myself while I was there, because he was going through some type of audit. Like it was just a story, like an audit by the government. But don't worry, we'll take care of everything after. So I went into debt, and I was in another country when I really shouldn't have been there, like that whole traveling to the US and living and all of that stuff. And I ended up owing the government a whole bunch of money, and I had to pay that back. So it was a lot of stuff, obviously, from a financial standpoint, and a psychological.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that. And then all of the supports that I tapped into, they weren't individuals that looked like me, that had my experience, Caribbean, the, Black Canadian experience, women of color, and I would have appreciated that. But then at that time, I hadn't gone through my CYC training, coaching. So I didn't even have the presence of mind to think, to ask, to have that resource available to search for it. Mm-hmm. So that just the knowledge of knowing to ask, right? And that's it. I'll leave that there, just to have the understanding and the knowing to ask, that we don't have to have, that you can make those requests when you're talking about the type of care that you want to receive.
Right. And you also mentioned about closure, getting answers.
Yes. Yeah.
And on that.
I had to figure out, I had to give myself closure. I would have been nice. It would have been nice if I could have gotten that from this individual. But of course, even if I had asked and had the opportunity to have the conversation, I would not have gotten the truth. I wouldn't have gotten what I needed to hear. It would have been probably more trauma and more lies and more manipulation. So I really had to reconcile within myself to realize that I needed to give myself that closure, and that part of that was recognizing I wasn't going to get it from anywhere else but myself. And through the supports that luckily had available, and that I also sought out.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Thank you very much for sharing. The next question I have for you is, so what words of hope would you give to our listeners? What would you tell them?
I would say that, there's a time heals everything. I know that might sound kind of cliche. Time heals all wounds, but it does. And to give yourself time and to take the time and make the time. So you see the common theme here is time, as well as not feeling ashamed, not feeling like you're alone, and definitely reaching out to, I listed so many different supports that were part of my healing journey. So those are available to all, maybe not all of them, but definitely, a few of them would be available to most people. So to tap into those, recognize that, your family doctor is a great place to start. And having those referrals made, friends and family, and to talk about it and to share. Because if you hold it up inside, it's just going to eat away at you. So that's something I would definitely recommend and share. And then finding ways of self-care practices. That's like coloring is a self-care practice for me. That's another thing that connected me towards, that prompted me towards creating the coloring books is coloring as a self-care practice, meditation, finding ways that you can just relax and de-stress and release.
Okay, amazing. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch topics a little bit, which is part of one of my favorite topics, music therapy. Mm-hmm. Basically, as you see behind me, there are some books that says the music of my life. Basically, I talk about my journey with music therapy and bipolar disorder. So my question to you is, what type of music do you like?
Neo soul. That's my genre. That's what I like to sing and what I have always performed. And so neo soul is like R&B, soul, jazz, fusion, right? That's like artists like Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, Jill Scott, Ledisi, Maxwell, John Legend a little bit as well. He's a little bit more commercial, and these artists are usually they're not crazy. They're not like Beyonce and Bieber, right? They have a niche where it's intentional lyrics and different styles of instrumentation and just stuff that has soul and vibe and just makes you like,
Yes, I
get into it. So yeah, neo soul.
Okay. And if you were to think of a song that best describes your journey, what would it be and why?
Did I list therapy?
Let's see, what song did we?
I think
best thing you never had.
Oh yes,
and therapy.
So yeah, best thing. I played that song on repeat. Man, that's a Beyonce. Yeah. I can't remember the lyrics at this point, but or else I'd sing it right now.
Right.
Yeah, but that's the title of the song. I mean, the title of it says it all, right? Best thing you never had. Because I'm the best thing. And
never had.
Yeah. Well, yeah, never. It just didn't continue. Like it wasn't going to continue. So not the way that it could have or should have or would have flourished or could have flourished because he wouldn't have allowed it to, right? So yeah, best thing you never had.
Hey, I love it. So tell me, what does music mean to you? Why did you get into music? What pushed you to become a musician. And how does that help with you, with how is it therapy for you? What does it do for you?
Well, music puts me into another frame of mind, like an alter ego. You know, my music, I'm just more, it's freeing, you know, it's empowering, commanding, and creative, you know, being able to share what I've created, because I performed a lot of the times. I would perform my own music, my own material that I've written and produced with other people. So that is that creation piece of, from your mind to the world, you know, to the individuals. I just get so passionate. I just get so passionate about just the thought, just the creation, that everybody should be able to experience what it's like to think of something and then make it happen.
Yes.
And the intention, and be intentional about it, because, you know, we think of things and make it happen all the time, like our day-to-day. You get up, you go to work. I have to go to work. You think about it, you're there. But I mean, like something outside of the regular, something outside of the norm, that you conceptualize it and then put it into existence. And it's an amazing feeling to be able to do that. So I wish that for everybody to be able to do that. And that's so that I've been able to do that in many ways with music, and having music out there on my CDs and stuff like that, as well as the coloring books as well. So I've been lucky in that respect to be able to create and put things out there. But it's as you know, music is therapy. It's sound, it's resonance, it's vibration, and then we're sound, resonant, vibration. I don't know if people recognize that as beings, that we are made up of all of these things. And so that's one of the reasons why music impacts us as beings so much, is because there's that connection of the sound waves and the vibrations, and it just feels good, right? I used to be able to stand in front of like speakers and just be there and feel the bass, you know, and it goes through your whole body, right? So that's it.
You okay? No, that's powerful. Like, music is so powerful. I just love what it can do for you, and how it makes you feel, and the emotions that can come out of you, and it's just powerful force.
Yeah, and it's a language as well.
Exactly, a language, international language that anyone can speak.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, love it.
No barriers.
Definitely. So my next question is, so how can we stay in touch with you? What are your social media handles? Oh, before we do that, tell us a little bit more about your coloring book. Why did you create it? And what's the inspiration behind it?
Well, when I first created the first book, Soulful Color, coloring book for your inner child. That's a long title, but that's what it was. I created that on the backdrop of, you know, that the whole, I refer to it as the Miami experience. And having gone back to school to get my CYC, Child and Youth Care Counselor credentials, I needed a way to calm because that was stressful. That was going back to school as an adult. That's stressful. I really wanted to get honors, and I started coloring as a self-care practice to, you know, in between exams and studying and things like that, I would color. And I just realized that the coloring world, the adult coloring world, which was it's still really popular, but it was at its peak in like 2008, 10 to 12, I guess. And we started seeing these really intricate adult coloring books, where it was mandalas and futuristic landscapes or fantasy landscapes where, you know, you could be sitting on an image coloring for hours with your fine point markers. And that stressed me out. I was like, I need to be able to sit down and finish an image in one sitting, like an hour or half an hour or something like that, because I don't want to feel like it's unfinished, because there were so many other things in my life that were unfinished, you know, going to school, doing an exam and all that stuff. I was like, I can't have my relaxation practice to be unfinished. So I started coloring kids coloring books, very big images. And then I thought, you know, if I feel this way, there's got to be other individuals that feel this way, that don't like the intricacy of adult coloring books. And so I ended up coloring kids coloring books, but then I wanted to have images that reflected me as a woman of color, or that had some diversity, some swag. And I went to go search for them and couldn't find them online or in bookstores and stuff like that. And so I decided, you know, I can do this. I want to make my own coloring book. And so that's how the first coloring book was born. And then I ended up becoming a financial professional. So I graduated and I was working in the Peel School Board for several years as a youth counselor. And then I went to an event where they were talking about financial literacy and financial awareness, and what does your financial life look like? And do you have a will? Do you have life insurance? And are you investing? Are you saving? Are you prepared for retirement? And all of these questions. And I was like, no. What? How come I don't know these things?
Right.
Know these things? Why weren't they taught to me? Why weren't they in part of our curriculum at school, like money management, personal money management, and how to become financially independent? Like, that wasn't even a concept to me at the time. And so that kind of like, woo. And so when I created the second book, I wanted to focus on money mindset and legacy and financial literacy and community, and keeping our dollars circulating in our community and in the Black community. And so that's what the inspiration was for the second coloring book, which is Soulful Color, Mindset, Money Matters. So again, coloring is a self-care practice. It calms stress, it calms anxiety. So there's that mental health piece. And then I really highlighted the connection between mental health and money, because when you're activating the right and left side of your brain simultaneously while you're reading the affirmation, you're doing something artistic at the same time, the sound of the coloring, you know, pencil crayons on a piece of paper, there's that that sound, you know, that's also calming. So when you connect all those things together, it really makes for an experience that can program your brain a little bit differently when it comes to your mental health, being proactive about your mental health, really, and then also being proactive about your financial wellness and financial health.
Cool. Very interesting. So how can we stay in touch with you, and what are your social media handles? How would we get one of your coloring books?
You can get the coloring books at soulfulcolor.com. So soulfulcolor.com, soulfulcolor.ca. That'll take you to the portal to purchase both coloring books. And then also my Instagram handle is Soulful Color, at Soulful Color, as well as at Soj Soul. So I have a page for myself and then a page for the coloring book. So at Soj Soul, at Soulful Color, soulfulcolor.com, soulfulcolor.ca. And there's also the Facebook as well. So really, like, I'm on all social media platforms. I'm not on TikTok though. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into TikTok, but you never know. You never know.
You never know. Definitely.
Time on Instagram. So those at Soj Soul and at Soulful Color are some of the best ways to get me. And then, of course, there's the links to the book.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Well, I will be putting all that information in the show notes so that anyone who wants to get in touch with you, they should be able to contact you that way.
Okay, perfect.
So Sophia, thank you very much for this interview. It's been very enlightening, and I really enjoyed learning what the connection between money and mental health. And your transparency was definitely very refreshing. So thank you very much. So with that said, to all you resilient minds out there, until next time, please subscribe to us on all our platforms, and don't forget to rate the show and leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Also join the community of resilient minds and sign up for our monthly newsletter at cleonicrawford.com. Be sure to grab a copy of my book, The Music of My Life, on all Amazon marketplaces to get to know me better. And if you can think of one person that will receive value from today's show or connect with Sophia's testimonial, please share it with them. Feel free to take a screenshot of this week's episode of the podcast and tag us on Instagram. You can tag myself at Only Cleoni or Resilient Minds 365, and today's guest at Soulful Color or Soul J Soul. And remember, mental health is not a death sentence. Despite your illness, you can strive, thrive, and live a life of abundance. Until next time, I'm Cleoni Crawford, and I'm signing off.